whether it's patients or clients or people buying technology or physicians, when you just sit down and say, okay, what is one thing that you could do better or one thing you would like to change in your practice? And then we go from there.
Hello and welcome to the Care to Lead podcast. Today I am pleased to introduce Amber Mosley, CEO and co-founder of Innovative Wellness Consultants and Quantum Energy Wellness Center. Amber has navigated the challenges of confronting not one, but two incurable diseases. Today, she's here to talk with us about things that keep executives up at night and a whole lot more. So welcome, Amber. I'm so glad to have you here with us. First of all, what else would you like to share with our audience about where you've been and how you got here today?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Cynthia, for inviting me and I'm wanting to do an interview. I'm very grateful. I just want to say that, I've navigated through the world of not one, but two incurable diseases, and where I was just told there's nothing else they could do. And that just led me on the pathway of where I'm at now with my sister and creating innovative technologies and educating doctors or people that want to learn about kind of how my pathway led me here. And, also my sister's as well. So she's an autistic mama. And so we just are so blessed to get to share things with people that are interested.
So tell us more about your journey through your diseases. Tell us more about that. It's really interesting.
Well, my first incurable diseases was called reflex sympathetic dystrophy, which they've actually renamed now. And it took me approximately about 22 doctors to find somebody that was actually like, okay, what you're experiencing is real. It's not, something that's made up in your head. And a lot of doctors were like, oh, well, there's just no way that you're going through that. I found a wonderful doctor, and then he just kind of led me on a pathway of understanding what I was going through and how to navigate through that. But where my journey started was in Lubbock, Texas, with a doctor by the name of Gabor Rax. And he was one of the leading doctors at the University of Texas Tech for pain. And where I went there, I remember seeing a interview or a podcast in his waiting room. And it was like the connection of the mind and the body. Because back then, this was the early 90s, the emotional aspect was different than the physical aspect. People weren't tying those together. And I remember seeing that and I thought, well, that's very interesting. And so I started diving back into what I was going through in my life. And I'd gone through a very bad breakup with somebody that I dated through college and everything. And so there was an emotional aspect to me not healing, but my injury was an effect of an injury working for an airlines at that time. But I wondered why my body wasn't wanting to heal. And there was a huge emotional aspect to that. That's kind of how it brought me on this journey of going, okay, everything that they're doing is not working for me. It's not that I say it doesn't work for everybody else. It just wasn't working for me. And so I just set out on a whole different journey. I literally had no use of the left side of my body. Most people that have stage 3 reflex sympathetic dystrophy, they either cut your limbs off or you're bedridden. And I was just not having any of that. So I started my own therapy using my horses and my animals and my sister, and she's a PA. And so we just kind of dived off into the alternative aspect of how to heal my body. And then I got through that. And then I actually had another incurable disease called eosinophilia myalgia syndrome, which I got from taking amino acid over the counter. That, come to find out, it was made in the same vats of the tryptophan in the 80s that a lot of people were passing away from. And I spent a month at the Mayo Clinic and basically left there. They had labeled me with Syndrome X, and there was just like nothing they could do for me. And then again, just learning what I learned, just completely healed with the grace of God. And he put amazing people in my life. And that's how we're here where I'm at today.
So that's really interesting. It's amazing how you've been able to overcome all of that. How has that shaped your perspective on life and leadership? And that's what we're talking about today is leadership. So I'd like to get your take on exactly what shifted for you.
Well, I think what shifted for me is, and this is something that we share with a lot of our patients that come into our clinic, our wellness clinic, is I never would let anybody label me that I am a disease or you have this. And I think that's very important because you go to a lot of the doctors and they label you that you are a disease. You are lupus or you are Lyme and I think that I never would allow myself to be labeled and I wouldn't carry that with me. And by releasing that energy and just not allowing that to be who I was, I believe that's where we are now with our company. And we've built other companies and sold those. But I believe that I would never let anybody label me because I am unique. Everybody is unique. And I just would never allow that. Even at the Mayo Clinic, I wouldn't allow them to do that. So I think that's what's brought me to how I build a company with my sister and how we look at things.
So tell me more about that. How does the not labeling and not allowing yourself to be labeled change the way you actually built your company?
Well, I think that allowing not to be labeled is like getting into the realm of transdermal ozone and how effective it is. Not letting people go, oh, ozone's bad for you. You know, it hurts you. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. So not letting somebody label me was also not letting somebody tell me we couldn't do and help.
And how does that translate into how you deal with the people that come into your clinic?
Well, through some of the technologies, one of the very first things we do is we use one of our technologies called the AO mobile scanner, and we record their voice. And in real time, we can look at the emotions because the very first thing we have to get a grip on is someone's emotions. Like what is affecting them? Because, even the CDC and the AMA recognize that emotions are a lot of the foundation of where a lot of the diseases manifest at. So that's one of the first things we look at. Okay, what are we looking at and where is it affecting the body? And then from there, we can kind of get a game plan on what we're going to kind of do and just sit down and talk to somebody. And, again, I never let anybody label me. So we don't in turn label anybody that walks through our door. We give them the options and we give them, it's their choice. So I think that's kind of where we're at right now is I never allowed anybody to label me and we don't label anybody that comes into our clinic.
So something that I want to drill in on that I found really interesting in what you just said was that you start with emotion. And as a person who has been an executive coach for the past 15 years and working with executives, what I've learned over the years is emotion has an enormous amount to do with how we lead. My own book that's coming out soon is called Dark Drivers, and it's about these hidden memories and experiences and traumas that are buried deep within our subconscious. And in a leadership perspective, those things come up. I kind of like describe them like beach balls underwater. They're just right under the surface, ready to smack us in the face at any moment if we're not aware that they exist because they're running under the surface in our subconscious. And in order to lead effectively and have empathy for others, we have to first start with understanding our own emotions, understanding what's driving us, understanding what's hidden from our conscious view. And if what I'm hearing you say is that it's the same thing with your physical condition as well as your leadership experience.
Absolutely. One thing, if I'm on a difficult call, the first thing I do is I'll reach for, the AO and I'll record my voice and I can see what octaves are out and where that's affecting me. So like if I know that I'm about to jump on a call with a client and I'm always getting off the call with them more agitated, then I'll go and see, okay, what emotions are coming up with me that have been buried that maybe's rising. And I kind of get ahead of that. And then, by listening to the music through this same program, it gives binaural audio frequencies and tones back to the brain. And I use that a lot, and a lot of our patients here and clients here use it as well. And I know a lot of executives that use that because it's a lot easier doing something like that with innovative technology than having to sit and talk, because we have a lot of people that come in that are emotionally, especially what everyone's gone through for the last 2 or 3 years. They're just tired of talking about it, and they want to be able to see kind of what emotions are buried and how do we level out those emotions to face the challenges in life.
And how do you, and I guess it's just you and your sister in your business, do you have a team? How many people are in the office?
There's 4 of us. There's she and I, and we run innovative wellness consultants where we build wellness clinics. We educate doctors on new technology. And then we also have our wellness clinic here. And then we have a doctor and then one of our leading techs here as well. So there's 4 of us.
Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing that when you're trying to educate physicians, there's certain challenges that come with that. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Yes, I think that the challenge is getting them at the point where they're wanting something new. I'm a big believer in, Western medicine or if for an emergency or surgery, all kudos given to that. But we have a lot of doctors that are like, I'm missing something. I'm missing something that I wasn't taught about. And then they come to us. And so we teach them about emotions. We teach them about other aspects of how of looking or helping, their patients. We don't ever try to move them off the path they're on, but allow them to maybe enter another path to take what they've learned over the years and apply it to new challenges and new technologies. And so when you get a doctor that's really open to that, it is an amazing thing to watch them go, I had no clue. I had no clue what hydrogen could do. I have no clue what transdermal or frequencies could do. So it's really exciting. And they do have to be at that point where they want to learn more.
Leaders face challenges every day trying to get their teams on board to accept change and to be excited about change. So how we communicate change and how we get people to buy in and embrace that is really critical. So do you have any tips that you would give to a physician? Say you get that physician on board and they're really excited, but now they have to go and they have to encourage their team to buy into all of it. What are some suggestions you have for that leader to embrace change and get his team or her team to embrace change?
Well, I believe that if they are a true leader of their practice and they have a couple of people in there that are, or usually it starts, let me back up. Usually it starts within a practice of either a nurse or a patient comes to them and says, did you know this, this, and this? And they're like, no. And they're like, here, reach out to, I went to see this doctor or my friend went to see this doctor. And sometimes those doctors get on the call with other doctors to speak about things. We have one of the most amazing mentors, Dr. Mark Bardis in New Jersey. And we kind of grew together in learning more about things. And we're always going back and forth about what he does. And he supports us. And okay, this doctor, this, he would be interested in learning about this. And that's kind of a long answer to your question, but I think that it starts within them being a leader within their environment and maybe getting somebody in their practice engaged. And I think it's just a way of how you engage them. So
that brings me up to what you said in your article was that empathy, adaptability, and resilience are 3 character traits that you believe are instrumental to your own success. How do these character traits, in your opinion, tie into getting people to buy into what you're selling? I don't mean like product wise. I mean, it's change. It's different. It's out of the mainstream. So how do empathy, adaptability, and resilience help you to do that?
Well, I think empathy has a lot to do with a lot of the physicians or wellness clinic. They have such a love for their patients, and maybe what they're doing is not working. And they really have that empathy of, I want to help them. There's something else out there. And that's one of the big things we see in people that are kind of doctors that are transitioning over to more of the innovative alternative aspect of technology. And as far as adaptability is, okay, I have a clinic. How do I adapt these new technologies in? And so that's what we do. We sit down with them and go, okay, tell us everything about your clinic. And let's start with one technology and let's adapt that into, and then let's go to the next technology. And then when they see the change, they have that resilience of, okay, I want to learn more. Okay, what's my next step? So it's quite exciting to kind of see those three things play into helping educate other people and other teams.
You mentioned empathy in one sense of the word where you say, I want to help you. This means a lot to me to help you. And we can look at empathy in that way. But I think empathy even goes deeper than that. To truly have empathy for that other person, you have to understand your own struggles first. In order to have empathy for someone else, you have to be able to go within and, like yourself, you've gone through a path. So when someone comes into your clinic, your empathy isn't just I want to help you. Your empathy is, I get what you're experiencing. I've been there. I feel it. It doesn't have to be the exact same thing. So we can all improve our empathy and increase our empathy by recognizing our own path. What have been our struggles? What did that feel like? How does that struggle affect how I live my life today? How does it affect how I interact with other people? And once we do that inner work, now empathy becomes very different when you're looking at someone else, because you genuinely can feel it. You really get the struggle. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing that we really strive here is when we sit down with our clients about new technology or our patients, when we sit down with them, then we look at them. Like, we really sit and look at them and go, hey, we've been there. We know. I mean, like my sister, the struggle of an autistic child, she knows what the struggles are. I know what the struggles are. And when you can sit down and say, okay, let's forget about the paperwork. Let's forget about any, labels have been on you. Let's just find out you. Let's find out, what are you internally dealing with? And when you can get to the bottom of that, whether it be a trauma from a childhood or more recent, then you start to peel the onion away. And then you can really get to some excellent results. But you're right. Empathy is more of just, oh, I want to help you, or, oh, I understand. It comes from the soul, from the heart. And I think that when people are more aware and want to start tapping into that, they just start seeing changes everywhere in their life.
So your career prior to these illnesses was not in your own business. You were not a CEO. So tell me what you went through. First of all, how did it impact how you behaved and did your job in your past career? And how did it give you the impetus to change?
I think that I was still the person I was then. I still had the passion and the drive to help smaller companies. I kind of worked with smaller companies to help bring them into the US and pair them with doctors. I've always been really good at pairing technology with doctors or people that want to learn more and experience more. So I do believe that one of the things that made me want to step out and start our own company or our own consulting for innovative is that I only had so much input and so much control about the output. And I saw that things could go further and they could be expanded upon, but I didn't have that kind of control. And so a big choice was walking away from that industry in my career, which I was extremely successful at, and saying, okay, there's something else. And that was a big, big challenge, not only for me, but also for my sister, when we just kind of closed that door and we're like, okay, we got it. God, you close the door, the windows, everything around us. Now you want us to go this path. So, I do think that it was more about, I was limited to a point. I could help, but I was limited to where I could finish taking it to the next step. And with our own business, I'm able to start it from the beginning, see the need for growth and the change, and then implement that into the outcome.
And that ties into your trait that you talk about, adaptability. So you were able to pivot from the business world to doing your own business and creating what you saw a need for. Has there been any time since you've started your company that you found that you had to pivot or adapt your business strategy? And how did that turn the challenges into opportunities for you?
Absolutely. I think one of the big things is launching 2 of the new technologies. One of it is the refire. And I mean, we've been working on this for 3 years with another company. And it was always a stop, pivot, and along with some of the other technology. But we're a big believer is when the timing is right, that's when it's supposed to be. So if we're getting a little bit of pushback, then we step back and go, okay, where do we need to go and what do we need to change? And it's like and one of the other new technologies is called the Zippus, and that's a 0-point energy plasma ion suite. When you're creating new devices, it's always a stop, pivot. Okay, now we're on the right track.
So tell me more about the technologies. You've mentioned a couple of them here quickly. You've delved into the voice one a little bit. Tell me more about the technologies you're using.
Well, one of the technologies that I think has the biggest impact on our clinic and people out there, it's called the AO mobile device. And it not only looks at the emotions, but it does an energetic scan. It does a lot of really cool technology, homeopathics. You can make your own patches, energetic patches with it. And for the cost of it, we're able to share the technology through thousands of people. And so that's really exciting. And that's the AO mobile scanner. And then the refire is transdermal ozone, and it has all different kinds of frequencies, vibration frequencies, hydrogen, red light therapy, transdermal ozone. So that's exciting. And then the other one is called the Zippus room. It's 0-point plasma ion suite. And so that's a whole new technology. There's like nothing else out there like that. So we're getting ready to launch that. And so it's exciting.
Tell me, what does that do? This ozone or the suite. Tell me more about that. It sounds interesting.
So the 0-point energy. So there's a way to zero out the energy in the room by using frequencies. And then we have another plasma tube that emits frequencies. And then that is where the body can uptake and then those frequencies. And then there's the negative ions. So we're able to put negative ions directly over someone that the body completely absorbs, and then in the room as well, more so than if you're standing underneath a waterfall in the middle of a beautiful jungle or somewhere. So it's kind of like you've heard of grounding. So it's like that, but grounding on the greatest, fastest aspect to the body. So you flood the body with negative ions. And so then they go in and work with the positive ions to help align the body. So it's quite interesting. You can Google 0-point energy and frequency. So we just kind of brought all of that together.
What kind of things does this benefit? Like what kind of illnesses or what kind of pains or experiences would someone use this for?
Well, that's the beauty of the Zippus room is you don't have to like worry about what illness or what disease or whatever. So it works on helping the entire body. And we're big believers in if you give the body what it needs, the body is the most amazing aspect out there. So, we're a big believer in if you're able to give the body what it needs, the body can help itself regulate and heal itself. It's not so much about the technology. It's about giving the body what it needs.
So it can be used
a miracle.
So it can be used for pretty much anything then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So leadership often involves making difficult decisions. Can you tell me about a challenging decision that you had to make as a leader and how that impacted your business?
Yes, I think one of the big decisions is understanding or making sure that the leaders on the team are in sync. And even though we may have different ideas or different ways to approach, it's at the end of the journey, we want to get to the same place and valuing everyone's own ideas and life experiences. And when you have a team member that is just not there, maybe brought in for a certain reason, one of the biggest challenges we had is we had to exit from this business partner. And so, but in the long run, it was the best thing that ever happened for us. So I think that when you do have members of your team that you feel like they are a teammate, and then they kind of start bringing negativity or things to the business, you have to find a way to address that and take care of it. So that was one of our biggest challenges.
So you talked in your article also about turning concerns into opportunities. So I guess this is an example of when you were able to do that?
Yes. So it was a big concern, and it was just something that just talking to a lot of our mentors and talking to a lot of people, we had to just let go and see what the next journey of our life was going to be and move on. And that's what we did. We just basically just put it in God's hands and just said, okay, you brought us here, just take us to the next journey. So that's kind of what we did.
So it sounds like you're consistently standing out from competitors, and that's something a lot of businesses have to think about. So what kind of practical advice do you have on how organizations can identify and emphasize their own unique strengths and value propositions?
I think looking within and getting with your team members and sitting down and saying, what do you feel like our strengths are in our clinic? And then focus on that and say, okay, how can we become the best at this? And is there new technology out there that will allow us to be the best at this? So we try to encourage people to be really good, at a few things instead of mediocre at a lot of things. And so that's one of the challenges that we have when we do get the opportunity to work with clinicians or physicians, that we look at, okay, what are your strengths? And then let us build on those. And it seems to be a really good connection when they start looking at their strengths in the new technology.
I think that a lot opens up for organizations when we can look at our teams and we look at the people that work with us and we can expand their thinking, because they're already brilliant people and they're already providing value to the organization. But when we can put them in a space and listen more deeply and say, what do you think is going to happen 5 years from now? What is your take on how this technology can go even further? And we're just asking those questions and pulling that knowledge out of them, making their thinking expanding and opportunities expanding for everyone. And yet leaders often don't do that. They often go in and tell the teams, this is how it's going to happen. This is what we're going to do. When meanwhile, there's this vast wealth of knowledge and information in their heads. And it sounds to me like you're working to get that out.
Well, thank you. And it is a challenge to get that out, because a lot of the clinicians or physicians, they weren't taught about certain aspects of the new technology coming out. I do believe that the world is going to see some incredible technology being launched. I do believe we're the leaders in a lot of this, but it is getting them to kind of think outside the box. So that's kind of what I had to do, all those years being, just ran through this test and this surgery and this test. At one point you just sit there and go, okay, I can do this better. And how can I do this better? And I think bringing your team in around you and looking, because you brought them in on your team for a reason, and try to remember and don't forget that reason, because everybody has their own unique strength that they bring. And when you continue to value that in your teammates or your business, you just see that everything just kind of grows from there. And, to this day, we use that with our mentors. We're like, okay, if you could change this, how would you do that? And then they come back and say, I would like this, this, and this. And that's kind of what we did. We listened to a lot of our mentors about some of the technology. And then we just went to work and, it started changing things based upon, their experience, and whether it be new into the world or into new innovative technology, or been there for a while and have used it. So it's pulling that out of the people that you are working with to get them excited, because it's buried deep inside. They're looking for something. And that's what we try to do, is help them find that.
And so education obviously is a big part of what you do, and educating people on what the technology can do, educating the users, educating the physicians. What's the most creative, different thing you've ever had to do to really get buy-in, to even be willing to accept the education? Because if people have a closed mind, then it doesn't matter how much you educate them. So what's the most creative thing you've had to do in order to get someone to be open enough to hear what you have to say?
I don't know about creative, just maybe something wasn't working for them in their clinic, or something wasn't working for them personally. And we're like, okay, would you be open to trying this? Mm-hmm. And, a lot of times they are. And when they do try it, whether it's us sending them a machine or, just educating them about what it does, and then start sending them studies and breaking things down, I think it's maybe just allowing them to experience it and finding that way that they're open to it.
So you're really listening for their real pain point, what are they really struggling with? Mm-hmm. No matter what they come to you with or what you go in for, it sounds like you're really listening to find the real source of their pain. And if you can offer them a different alternative for that, it opens it?
Yes. Yes. And that's the same way with whether it's patients or clients or people buying technology or physicians. When you just sit down and say, okay, what is one thing that you could do better, or one thing you would like to change in your practice? And then we go from there. So,
what's one thing you would like to change in your clinic, your practice?
I would really like to be able to bring more people on that, or more people that could help build and run our clinic, so we can educate more physicians and wellness centers out there on the new technology, because it's where you have to be able to train somebody or get them to want to adapt to the certain things that you're doing. And that does take a while. I mean, if you're looking at bringing on an office manager, that's just not something that happens overnight in this world. You've got to have somebody that understands the technology, can sit down and talk to the clients or the patients. And I think that's the biggest challenge right now, and finding that person to help, grow this clinic and then help bring that into other clinics. So
that brings me to two things that I know other leaders struggle with too. You can find someone who has the skill set that you need. You can find somebody who can manage an office. You find someone who can do the day-to-day task. But something you mentioned in there was to really listen to a customer, a client, a patient that comes in the door. And that's always a challenge. How do we evaluate someone on their ability to listen with empathy, to hear, to really buy into the business and not just think of it as an employee, to really want to be a part of the growth, to really want to be a part of building something, and they're not an owner. So how do you have any tips for other leaders? How do you peel back the onion in that interview process to find out that you're getting the right person?
Well, I don't know if there's a specific thing as far as pulling back that onion that I can put my finger on. It's more of an energetic feel, more of what I'm feeling from that person. And when you're able to tap into that, I believe that opens up a whole nother realm of how you see people as well. Because a lot of times, some of our best employees know nothing about this world, but they want to learn. And when you can find somebody who has that desire that wants to learn, I believe that's kind of the first trait that we would look for. It's just like, kind of what you do, executive coach, you kind of tap into what do they want to change or what do they want to learn? And then you're able to put your energy and focus that into bringing that over to them. So I think one of the first things we do is look at where is the desire to learn? That's the biggest thing.
Now, I was just going to say, I think in executive coaching, one of the things that is critical is that we know that there is just enormous talent in that person that we're working with. Our goal, our job is to keep pulling that talent out because sometimes it's hidden from them. They think that they've already mastered everything that they can do and they've been really successful. So our job as a coach is to keep saying, yeah, but I know there's more. Have you considered this? And just asking those right questions. So it's probably somewhat similar to what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So does cybersecurity or AI play into what you do?
It does. I have a team member that handles that for us, but not as much as like if we had a bunch of data stored on servers or things like that.
Yeah. So your technology is not at jeopardy or anything.
Yeah. Pretty much the technology we have that it doesn't have to be hooked up to internet and it doesn't have to be driven by the internet. So it kind of sits on its own.
So executives are often dealing with stress, and you mentioned using the AO device to manage stress and enhance mental well-being. Could you explain if this is something that like your typical everyday executive could use, this kind of technology just to keep stress under control?
Absolutely. It's actually, you can download it on your phone. It's very inexpensive. It's $149 a month, unlimited scans, unlimited voice recordings, unlimited frequency patches, homeopathics, everything. Absolutely. Every CEO, you're going into a big meeting, you've got something you can't shake off, you can scan and shield yourself. There's a lot of times I don't want to pick up somebody's energy that I just got off the phone with. So I'll make sure and scan and shield myself from that. So it's amazing technology that we've put everything into technology that you can actually have on your phone. And there's no data collected from the company. There's no data that's kept at all. That's one of the technologies. And one of the fields that my sister and I for 2024, we want to get into is helping large companies bring in technologies like this into their space to help their employees. Because when you're able to regulate the emotions or, the body, give the body what it needs, whether it's the mitochondria through pulse electromagnetic field or anything like that, and you kind of have something built into their area or their companies, the growth is there. And it's something that we want to help companies kind of tap into.
That's amazing. I want to ask you one final question before I kind of wrap up, but you talked about like before you go into a meeting, if you just kind of want to scan and you have this technology on your phone, tell me what that would look and feel like for an executive. Like what am I going to experience when I do this scan?
Well, I mean, you're going to open your phone and go to the technology, and then you're going to hit record, and you're going to be able to record your voice. And then you're going to be able to look at what octaves are out of sync and where emotionally and physically is that affecting you. And then another part on the AO is affirmations. I mean, I know you probably know how strong and how powerful affirmations are. So we can actually record your voice reading these affirmations, and then you listen to the affirmations back through your earpods or your phone. And that does a binaural, kind of binaural tones, but you're hearing your own voice. So, affirmations, you say the same thing, you say things and repeat, but this you're hearing in your ear, your own voice. And that alone is very powerful. So let's say you're on your way to a big meeting and, you know that you've got this, but there's some things that maybe you don't feel as good or powerful about. You just do these quick affirmations. You listen to them on your drive there or your walk there to the meeting. And then, you're also listening to your own emotions as well. And then it's just a very powerful piece of technology.
That's really cool. What else, Amber, would you like the listeners here to know about you and your organization before we wrap up?
Well, I think that I'd like everyone to know that we built our companies through the walk through life that we were giving, and, just say, okay, this is what our journey is. And how do we use this journey to help others? And how do we get away from it's all about me, me, me? It's about helping others, because that's really where the beauty in the, when you're vibrating at such a high frequency of love and peace and joy, you're able to really help more people. Whether it's just that one person you stop and you look there in their eyes and you smile at them, or you just say, how's your day going? It's just about being real and taking your journey and how do you take this to the next level? So I think that, navigating that and helping others through the new technology that we're launching in 2024 and, just being there for people who want to learn.
That's great. And your links to your website and your Authority magazine and everything will be with the show notes. But is there a preference that you have for how people can get a hold of you?
Actually, the fastest way to get hold of us is probably go to the website and just put in your information and kind of what your request is. And then that gets sent over directly to us. And then we review those at the end of the day. And absolutely, I don't have an issue with somebody emailing me directly. And I think my email's on the bottom of that as well.
Amber, I want to thank you so much for being here. And I'm sure that our listeners found what you have to say to be insightful and interesting. And we learned some new things about some pretty cool technology today. And to our listeners, thank you. Remember that leaders who care to lead. I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Cynthia.